The Mashujaa Day celebrations in the year 2023 were unprecedented. Things happened that have never ever before happened in the history of our country. Okay? To start with, there was the very unfortunate situation where 5 precious Kenyan lives were lost and scores of others were injured. Now, reports of exactly what caused this are still contradictory. Okay? One version says there was a stampede as people entered the stadium. Yeah. Another version said that a lady who was selling hot tea, because it was very cold and chilly in Kericho, in the early hours of the morning, as people arrived early to gain access to the stadium, one tea lady poured tea, and there was so much steam that people mistook it for tear gas, and so there was a stampede, and that is what caused this tragedy. Okay? Now, this version of events, you'll agree with me, does not ring true. I'm not saying it is false. It just doesn't ring true. Okay? But what we know for sure is that there was a stampede, and as a result of it, precious Kenyan lives were lost and scores were injured. Now, I know many who on this channel are not superstitious. That is very good. I know many are not sensitive to signs, because we live in a world which is controlled by what happens in the spiritual realm. And in the natural, we see signs that tell us very clearly where we're headed. But even if most of us are not sensitive, that is okay. The really worrying factor, which is very obvious, is as follows. It seems that there is nothing or very little that the current Kenya Kwanza government can do that ends up going right, that ends up going smoothly, let alone being successful. And this is so sad. But one cannot help but ask the very simple question. Why? Why are things going like this? Why is everything going wrong? There has to be a reason. Wouldn't you agree? Now, regulars on this channel will know that I really love my country. I consider myself a patriot. And I'm not expecting any reward or any recognition, because I think it is my duty, as it should be yours as a Kenyan. And therefore it greatly pains me to talk about a Mashujaa Day that went wrong, because that reflects on my country. That Mashujaa Day did not belong to the Kenya Kwanza government. It did not belong to the Ruto administration. It belongs to Kenyans, especially those of us Kenyans who closely follow our history, and are proud of being Kenyan, despite the many problems we face, despite the corruption, despite the grabbed land. This is our motherland. But having said that, I can't help point out that, in my opinion, some of the problems that unfolded during this year's Mashujaa Day were absolutely avoidable. And they happened, or they were allowed to dominate because of poor planning. Which brings me to the other issue, key issue about this Ruto administration. It does not believe in expert advice. It doesn't. We have been told by multiple sources that William Ruto does not take advice. And when he does, it is in very rare instances that Ruto takes advice. And in most cases, it is advice which is given and is in line with his own thinking. Okay? Now, that is very dangerous. for any leader of any country, but also for any leader, even of a company, even of a family. Yeah. Now, for instance, in Kericho, rain and the mud were a major issue. Okay. Now, rain is a blessing. It is good that it rained. However, those who are behind the planning of this National Day event, being held in Kericho for the first time since independence, for the first time in our history, should have planned ahead, should have taken precautions here and there, should have created a plan B here and there, yeah, to remedy the situation. One cannot help but get the feeling that those who are behind the planning of this National Day were short on something called experience, which we are told by the wise there is absolutely no substitute to. No matter how smart you think you are, even if you're a genius, experience, there is absolutely no substitute. In my opinion, what happened in Kericho, where many people said there was something amiss, even those who could not quite put their finger on it, said there was something very wrong here. What happened in Kericho is a summary, an illustration, a reflection of the Kenya Kwanza administration and the William Samoei Ruto presidency. Because without going out of one's way to bash an administration, to bash the UDA party, I think it is just good to say the truth. The truth which every Kenyan knows. Because there are so many things that have gone wrong in our country, just like they went wrong during the Kericho event, that would easily have been avoided. For instance, it is widely believed that the pressure on the Kenya shilling right now and the pressure on fuel prices to keep on going up was mainly caused by the speculation policies the UDA administration decided to embrace immediately they took over office. What do I mean? I believe investment experts call it shorting. That's the term they use. When you take a position, a speculative position that assumes that prices will go down, the Kenya shilling will strengthen. And indeed, the government had taken measures or had done something, that it was hoped would strengthen the Kenya shilling. And that was to take pressure off the Kenya shilling by buying crude oil on credit, so that at a certain time of the month, every month, there is no excess pressure on the shilling from oil importers paying for their supplies. Now, one thing about speculation is that there's no middle road. You'll either win big, very huge, or you could lose. And when you lose, you lose big, huge, colossal. And this is exactly what happened. And the losses incurred cannot be paid off quickly. And therefore, for many months to come, the Kenya shilling will continue to be under pressure. Fuel prices will continue to be under pressure to rise. Forget all the other factors. One of the main factors will be this speculation done by the Ruto administration very early on. The other thing many Kenyans see, which is very obvious, has to do with taxation. Now, it is not possible to force a cow to produce 30 liters when that cow can only produce 10. You can't force it. You can't force certain things. Now, many experts agree that the level at which Kenyans have been taxed up to this point has gone overboard. Economists call that point we have already passed, the point of diminishing returns. But then this is not a channel of Kizungu Mingi. So simply put, it means you reach that point where whatever you do, your revenue, what comes in, will continue to go down. Whatever you do, hata ufanye nini. And that is the point where we've reached. Despite the tax on fuel being doubled from 8% to 16%, despite so many other taxes being introduced that were not there before, the Treasury, in its monthly reports, is reporting that the tax collected is going down fast. We are collecting less tax than when Uhuru was president of Kenya. But the scariest thing of all is that those in the Ruto administration do not seem to see this, and as a result are still talking about more taxes. Even as collections continue to go down, they're still talking about introducing even more taxes, enforcing even more taxes, when the wise thing to do would have been to stop, because every human makes a mistake. Mistakes will always be made by humans. The wise thing to do would have been to stop and to reverse the policy. But then I believe the main hindrance of that is the pettiness of I will not be caught admitting, confessing, or doing anything that shows that what I did was a wrong decision. That is really what it is. And guess what? You know who will suffer most from that ego, from that refusal to admit and therefore reverse one's policies? It is ordinary Kenyans, me and you. Oh boy. All in all, Kericho was a clear illustration of where the country called Kenya is going, how things are done in Kenya, how everything has turned out for the Ruto administration. Kericho showed the world very clearly. Can you imagine even the guest of honor, despite being in the country, didn't show up? Diplomats who are supposed to be great friends of this administration did not show up. Oh boy, I really feel for this administration. You know, things can go wrong for somebody until you feel for them, and you genuinely feel for them. But many times, based on my experience in political analysis, decades of it, many times the answers to what you can see in front of your face can only be found if you go back a little in history and get some information that may not be widely available to everybody. And this is exactly what you can do by taking in my very latest audiobook, The Ruto Kenyans Will Never Know. Okay, it's available in audio format and also as an ebook in PDF format. The whole package is yours for only $24.55 or Kenya shillings 2,455. I highly recommend that you go for it. You can see details on your screens on what you need to do. Either an M-Pesa or PayPal, and then pop, you'll have this amazing, very informative book full of a lot of sensitive information with you, so that you can use your time over the weekend to channel yourself, to update yourself, so that less and less things surprise you, because many have predicted there are many crazy things still coming, still loading in a country called Kenya. Less and less will surprise you going forward. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.